Good morning, and welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist, to Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church, where we are meeting with our friends from the Unitarian Universalist Church of Detroit. We are gathered here both virtually and in person as one connected church community. My name is Reverend Julie Brock, and I will be your worship leader today. You know, I just realized that the worship leader job is so important and really hard. You have to remember tasks and follow a script, and I am not good at either of those things. So bear with me today, folks. Bear with me today. I am your worship leader today because our speaker is Syma Echeandia. Close enough? Echeandia, Syma Echeandia. She is from the congregation Tahia, where Joel and I are also members. So folks, I brag about you a lot. So if you could be on company manners today, don't embarrass me. All right. We're also joined here today by Alex Myers and our amazing choir. I'm very excited about what they've gotten in store for us. If you are a visitor online and would like Northwest or UU Detroit to stay in touch with you, please fill out the visitor form appearing in the chat box. And if you are with us here in person, you can fill out the visitor sign-up sheet in the atrium. For more information, you can always go on either congregation's website to get their weekly newsletters or sign up for those newsletters. So here we are as one virtual community, and I didn't follow the script. We were supposed to wave to our neighbors. So let's wave to our neighbors, because we are here virtually and in person. Anything you want to find out about the congregations, you can usually find out from those weekly newsletters. However, we do have a few announcements that we would like to share. Folks, the schedule for where we are going to be in the world is printed out on those doors back there. It is also in every newsletter, so you should be able to tell where we're going to be on Sunday morning. But for Northwest members, we are going to be here until March 16th, when we're having a joint service in Detroit. Megan Douglas is preaching, everybody. Very excited about it. For UU Detroit, we're going to be in Detroit at First Congregational next week, back here on the 16th. And again, we're going to be here on March 2nd to have Atina Danner preach for us. She is a fantastic radical UU leader who is helping lead us through our transitions discernment process. So, yeah. The 23rd of February, we're here. Okay, let me just do this in order. Ready? Next week on the 16th, there is going to be a service at First Congregational and a service here. Pick your place. On the 2nd of March, or the 23rd of February, everybody's going to be here. Yusuf Shakur is preaching. It's not to be missed. On the 2nd of March, everybody's going to be here. Atina Danner is preaching. The 9th of March, whatever the second Sunday in March is, we're going to have separate services. I'm preaching in Detroit, and Mark Denny is preaching here. Go Canvas. On the 16th, everybody's going to be in Detroit, and then the next one in March, I think the 23rd, everybody's going to be separate. And on the last Sunday in March, we're all going to Farmington. It's on the website. It's printed out back there. Speaking of Canvas, y'all, our Canvas committee seeks to get our thumb on the pulse of our congregation. This is for Northwest members. And to that end, the Canvas asks your honest response to a short survey that they have prepared for this fiscal year. They're going to share the results with the transitions team for shared ministry planning. There's a QR code for the survey via Breeze and on the back of your order of service. There's a link in the latest newsletter, and paper copies are available for you to fill out. This is all in preparation of the Canvas. Detroit, in preparation of your Canvas, get ready for Dan to call you. Do you all want to get more engaged but don't want to join a committee? There is a program council today after service. Folks, program council is how we coordinate social justice, small group discussions, educational programs, and congregational care. So if you want to do any of that but don't want to have to sit through committee meetings but can like maybe make a call or show up to an event, come today after service. We'll feed you lunch and give you a bite-sized way to help out the church. On February 22nd, join our neighbors in Farmington as we learn about the spiritual work of trans justice and safety. There's an interactive workshop held by the UU Society of Madison, and UU Farmington is hosting that in their space. So we're gonna go hang out at Farmington and watch a workshop virtually about trans justice and safety. It's important and fun. And for all y'all who always say you don't know what's going on in the churches, the board meetings are happening this Thursday. They're open and soup is happening before them. There's soup at 6 and the UU Detroit board meeting is at 6 and the Northwest UU board meeting is at 7. And you can come hang out. They're also happening virtually. So much happening, so much fun, so exciting. Read your newsletter. And before we begin though, having said all of that, let's take a deep breath and settle into a time of worship. One of the tasks you're supposed to remember to do is to light the little taper beforehand. And of course, now there's not going to be matches. Oh, they're right here. It's lonely up here by myself. Brooklyn, do you want to come up and help me? Here, do you know how I like the chalice? No? You stick this in here and put it up there. You got it? All right, this flaming chalice is a symbol of our faith. You got it. You got it. It's on fire. It doesn't look like it is. Oh, excellent. Yeah. This is a symbol of our faith, and we light it knowing this morning that many other Unitarian Universalist congregations across this land and around the world are doing the same. We light our chalice with the words from Northwest UU's mission statement. Please repeat after me. We light this flame to grow in spirit, knowledge, and action. Accept one another and support each other in times of joy and need. And each week we offer this land acknowledgement. We honor and pay our respects to the land on which we live and work, which was violently stolen through colonialism, genocide, and forced removal of its traditional stewards. These stewards are the Anishinaabeg, the Council of Three Fires, which include the Ottawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi, also known as the Ottawa, Chippewa, and Potawatomi tribes. We also acknowledge the people of African descent who were forcibly removed from their land and separated from their families through kidnapping and enslavement, and pay reverence and respect to them for building this country's infrastructure and economy with no reparations or compensation to date. I invite you all now to rise in body and or spirit and join me singing our opening hymn, Peace Like a River. My favorite part of singing Peace Like a River is the hand gestures. So I'm going to be exuberantly doing them at the front of the room. And if you all want to join, I would enjoy that. Brooklyn, if you want to help me do this too, you can. Oh, Eva's gonna help me, all right.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like
appreciate you all indulging me. Eva has prepared an amazing story for all ages for us that is a video for all ages. Do you want to say anything about it, Eva? Eva, come up here, would you? Thank you.
This is a video from the Middle East, and it's about a community that is called the Oasis of Peace. And I hope you enjoy it. It's a wonderful, intentional community of Arabs and Israelis living together.
Tucked away in the hills of central Israel, about 30 miles or so from Gaza, the sound of children playing climbs above the echo of explosions in this tiny village known as the Oasis of Peace.
We are trying to offer the world like how we can do it peacefully without killing each other.
For more than 40 years here, Israelis and Palestinians have lived side by side.
As neighbors, as partners, for a dream, for a community that's based on coexistence and equality and peaceful standards.
That dream, much more difficult with the nightmare of what's happening in Gaza.
It's not easy for both sides.
Is it something you talk about?
Yes, we have talks. First Jews with Jews, then Arabs with Arabs, then both together talking about the situation, how we feel about it, what we expect each other, what we need from each other.
And one thing, more than any other, keeps these families working for unity.
We have to be the bridge between the ugly reality and the future that we wish for our kids.
At the community schools, Jewish, Muslim, and Christian children sit side by side in classrooms where lessons are taught in both Hebrew and Arabic. They play together during recess, seemingly unfazed by the roar of fighter jets overhead, but fully aware of all that's going on around them.
Me and my brother were sitting on a swing. We heard 3 bombs, boom, boom, boom. I looked at the swing and it was vibrating. Every day I'm thinking about this situation. When the rockets are coming, when the sirens are going off, I'm always thinking about war.
A war that challenges the core of this community's mission.
This is a hard work, and this is the test for us. Can we pass the hard time, like now I think one of the hardest time, can we pass it as partners? Partners have crises, but it's okay. But we should know that we want to continue, and we will continue together.
Providing a glimmer of peace in a place where it's so hard to find right now. And their message of peace and unity is spreading. 85% of the students from the Oasis of Peace School come from outside the village, with hundreds more on a waiting list to get in.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.
We endorse all but the last 15 seconds of that video. And now if you all will rise in body and or spirit and join us in singing the children out to their classes.
May your mind be open to learning. May your lips bring movement to the world. May your heart know love and your hands do the work of justice as you rule Norway in peace. As you rule Norway in peace.
This month's partner for Northwest Unitarian Universalist Church and for UU Church Detroit is Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, or BLUE. BLUE is committed to expanding the power and capacity of Black UUs within Unitarian Universalism, providing support, information, and resources for Black Unitarian Universalists, and justice making and liberation for Black people in our faith. All undesignated donations will be split between Black Lives of UU and our congregation, and you can give in a variety of ways that are now visible on your screen or soon will be. For those here in person, we will pass a collection basket for checks and cash, and there is a QR code on the back of your order of service. We honor your generosity, ensuring that our collective resources do a greater good for ourselves and our world than any of us could have done individually. Join me in dedicating our offering. Please repeat after me. We to the work of building beloved community within and beyond our walls. We dedicate ourselves and these offerings. Can I ask which pastoral care associate is doing Joys and Sorrows? Come on up, Linda.
The one they can't see, right? Hi, everybody. Oops, I have to read this. My name's Linda Morris, and my pronouns are she and her. And I'm a member of Northwest Pastoral Care Team. I want to remind you that anyone needing the support of our community can reach out to pastoral care at northwest.org, northwestuu.org, as well as reach out to Reverend Julie or Pastor Eli. Jeez. The collective cares of our community are recorded in our book of Joys and Sorrows, which will remain on the red cabinet near the name tags. If you would like to submit a joy or a sorrow virtually, please email pastoralcare@northwestuu.org. Okay, here's the Joys and Sorrows. When I announce your name, would you raise your one hand that works, if that person's here? This one is from Liz Buckner. Are you here with your one working arm? Oh. Okay, she had, so this is Liz's joy, I think. I'm grateful to be recovering from shoulder replacement surgery. Thank you for support from Northwest UU friends, Beata Lemparski, Karen Queck, Linda Gabeski, and especially Linda Morris. Oh wait, there was no especially in there, sorry. I just added that. For all their help. It was a pleasure helping Liz. And I have a sorrow I didn't write down, so I'm cheating and going back to the old way. But I lost my dog 2 weeks ago very, very, very suddenly. Um, Luckily for me, I have another dog, so she and I have been hanging out playing games in bed on my iPad, cuddling with each other, and it's been a big help. Okay, so that's my sorrow. For these and the joys and sorrows that are held in the silent sanctuary of our hearts, I offer this prayer. Sources of radiance and resilience, keep watch with those who work or watch or weep this night. May the suffering be soothed. May the sick be tended. May the weary find rest. May the dying and those who love them find peace. May the joyous be shielded. And may all who know that we are surrounded in a love that is always with us, a web that connects us to all that exists. May we take a few moments of silence to be with each other in this sacred space. We will come out singing. I'm going to be gesturing for the choir at the moment to start, but it's not the usual introduction. So you'll see something like that. Or a nod or something. Spirit of life, come unto That was beautiful, wasn't it? Oh. I don't want to get off of that. Here's my last joke of the day. Thank you, Peter, Paul, and Jerry.
That really was amazing, folks. Thank you. So when I was in high school, I had 3 classes with the German foreign exchange student. So we befriended each other because he didn't know anyone else, and we had 3 classes together. And one of the classes that we had together was American history. American history, the Revolutionary War to Vietnam. And the first thing he said was, "Oh, you clock your history in wars?" So, I guess we do. And it was really interesting getting his perspective on the way we taught American history. And it was particularly interesting after the World War II section. I was sitting with him at lunch and I was like, that must have been rough for you. And he was like, why? We know we committed atrocities. They teach us that. How else are we going to learn not to do it? We've apologized, we've paid reparations, and we are going to continue to talk about it. You, on the other hand, had a country founded on a genocide, but the way it reads in your textbook was some righteous pioneers looking for economic and religious freedom. And I was like, wait, what? There was like we didn't do a genocide. He was like, mm-hmm. He actually called home. And this was like before there were like smartphones and Zoom and everything. He called home and put on speakerphone someone in his family to read aloud the textbook in Germany where they talked about the founding of America. And I was like, whoa, that's a different way to tell that story. It sounded more like our land acknowledgement here today that we said. And then he said something to me. He's like, do you know any older Black people? I was like, yeah, at church. He's like, all right. The next time you are with them, ask them what atrocities don't get taught in American schools. And I was like, oh, all right. So when I was at church, I sat down with Miss Mildred Robinson and Miss Nora Holt. Some of you know who I'm talking about. I was like, Miss Mildred, Miss Nora, folks, if you want to come sit down, there's some seats over here, there's some seats up here. So I was like, Miss Mildred, Miss Nora, what don't they teach us? What atrocities have they not taught us about? And they were like, oh, really? How long do you have? Well, I don't think, they haven't started talking about Tulsa yet, have they? No, we got a little bit of money, they carpet bombed us, they don't teach about that. I'm like, oh my goodness, what happened? And she's like, yeah, and then what do you call what happened in 67? You're in Detroit, you grew up in Detroit, you know 67, what do you say? I'm like, the riots. She's like, the riots. Did they tell you about the fact that there were street-clothed police officers specifically gunning down Black people in the streets? We call it an uprising. And I was like, oh, okay. What? And she's like, yeah, and tell me about Coleman Young. Tell me about Coleman Young. He's a corrupting figure, right? Came in, nepotism everywhere, started messing up the city government. I'm like, yeah, but everybody knows that. She's like, they sure do. That man was a socialist. That man was a socialist who tried to bring economic freedom to Black people in the city, but none of the white governors would work with him, so he had to start working with the corporations because the governors, the other mayors, wouldn't work with him. They were corrupted their own circles. They didn't want to let our people in. I was like, oh my goodness. They don't talk about this way. There's always a way where, you all know the victors get to tell the story, right? There's always a way to look at a situation that is not the way that is told in the storybooks. And it is our job to start nuancing some stories. And in order to do that, I've invited my friend Syma here today to speak. So, Let's sing a little song, and then we're going to listen to what Syma has to say. You with me?
Yeah.
All right. It's going to be number
158.
158. Stand body under, eyes body under, spirit and
I'll play the melody through for this one again. I'll say this is sort of familiar. It was commissioned for our neighbors over in Ann Arbor for their 125th anniversary, so it has a nice Michigan connection. Praise the source of faith and learning that has sparked and stoked the mind with a passion for discerning how the world has been designed. Let the sense of wonder flowing from the wonders we survey keep our faith forever growing and renew our need to pray. Source of wisdom, we acknowledge that our science and our art and the breadth of human knowledge only partial truth impart. Far beyond our calculation lies a depth we cannot sound, where the purpose for creation and the pulse of life is found. May our faith redeem the wonder of believing that our thought has displaced the grounds for wonder which the ancient prophets taught. May our learning curb the error which unthinking faith can breed, lest we justify our terror with an antiquated creed. One more time. Raise our minds to roam the heavens, praise for strength to breathe the air. Praise for all that beauty leavens, praise for silent choosing prayer. Praise for gracious and compassion, and for strangers, neighbors, friends. Praise for heart and lips and passion, praise for love that never
Wow. Okay. Okay. Can you all see me, I guess, right? Okay. And now I have to turn my book right side up. Wow. This has been a terrific service. Thank you all for inviting me. Thank you, Reverend Brock, Julie, and the entire UU community for inviting me here today to talk about my personal thoughts and feelings about Israel-Palestine. I represent myself. I don't represent any particular community, but I think many of you will commune with me. As a longtime member of Congregation Techia, I represent a segment of our multi-generational congressional community, which means I'm old. I represent a segment of that we consider adaptive elderly. I'm glad I'm old and I'm not dead. And I actually had my 82nd birthday last January 15th. And it's a great day because my daughter also was born that day, and we celebrate the real Martin Luther King birthday. So we really know when it happened. Aging has enormous privileges, and I indulge in as many as possible. However, it also has many assumptions. Among them, that the older we get, the more conservative our thinking becomes. A famous philosopher, you all know him, Steve Martin. I read this in AARP the other day. As you age, you either become your worst self or your best self. I feel like I've become my better self. We're in process. Here's my story. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. You've never heard of that, right? Dodgers came from there. And in the midst of World War II, because that was 1943, I am of the generation of Holocaust survivors. In fact, we're all survivors. Whether we lived through the horrors of Europe or were lucky enough to be living in safe places because our elders left Europe in time early enough in the previous centuries. My father was born in Austria and arrived in the US shortly after World War I rather, and my mom was born in the Bronx to two immigrants from a place called Białystok, Poland. Many people have heard of that area. My parents met in the place called the Herzl Club, named after the famous Theodor Herzl, in Borough Park, Brooklyn. It was a club my father and his buddies formed. My son-in-law told me it was really a meat market, but that's another story. My mother and her sisters used to attend the dances that the club sponsored, and that's how my parents met. I was a January baby. Actually, I was born at a hospital then called Israel Zion Hospital in Borough Park, and now it's called Maimonides Medical Center, you know how they expand. The cutoff date then in New York City for public schools was January 1. Since I was born on the 15th, I'd have to wait an entire year to go to start first grade. I don't think we had any kindergartens in those times. And that wasn't going to be okay with my Jewish mother. So I ended up going to a Hebrew day school, which is basically a parochial school. I actually enjoyed the 12 years of Hebrew day school. I've never been to a public school. We lived in this close Jewish community of Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, that distinguished itself as having two Hebrew day schools, two elementary Hebrew day schools, one for the Ashkenazi Jews, and if you all know, the Ashkenazi Jews were the mostly European, Polish, Russian, Eastern European, and actually another one for Sephardic Jews. Now, the Sephardic Jews that we knew came mostly from Syria, Lebanon, Egypt, and a variety of places like that. And the cultures are not that similar, although some of the prayers are similar, and but they often live very separate lives. But in our community, we were fairly integrated, and it was an unusual place to grow up, which was kind of interesting. Actually, when I reached 8th grade, the schools had to merge because they didn't have enough kids for classes, so we all graduated together in the 8th grade, which was a really interesting experience for our community. During high school, I rebelled. I dyed my hair red. I smoked in the bathroom, but it wasn't hot. We only had cigarettes. And I took my friends to Binky's, where we had bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwiches. I'm sorry. I forgot about that, but a good friend of mine, Carmela, reminded me. I was also influenced by the imported Israeli teachers that our schools brought. Two distinct memories of my early childhood are my grandparents learning of the deaths of their respective families during the Holocaust and the creation of the State of Israel. They were defining memories, and I was little too. I was smitten head over heels in love with the whole concept of this new state. I dreamt of going to Israel. My heroes were Golda Meir, remember the first prime minister, a woman prime minister of Israel, and Hannah Senesh. Now, if you haven't heard that story, it's very quickly. It was a young Jewish Hungarian poet who had migrated to Mandate Palestine and then volunteered to parachute into Yugoslavia to assist anti-Nazi forces and save Jews. She was caught and captured and died by firing squad. And there wasn't a little Jewish girl who hadn't read that little book about Hannah Senish. Thank you. My first trip to Israel was in 1960. It was my parents' gift to me as my high school graduation present. It was my first cruise. 2 weeks by sea on Zim lines on the SS Israel. The trip was sponsored by the New York Jewish Education Committee, so it was neatly subsidized. We didn't have it. Today, all the kids go on something called Birthright, and that's free. This wasn't free, but it wasn't as expensive as if we'd done it on our own. We went to a place in Israel called Beit Berel Educational Campus, which is in the town of Kfar Saba. And we mixed with the Israeli kids who were studying courses in education and a variety of things. It was really lots of fun. I was so smitten by this new country and its challenges that as soon as I arrived home, I planned to make Aliyah, which is the formal move and permanent relocation to the Holy Land. And I registered and attempted to attend the School of Social Work at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. However, on my way to Israel, I met someone. I married in Israel at something called Beit Harabanut, which is kind of like getting married at City Hall. And it's the house of the rabbinate, of the rabbis. And I returned to the States, finished my BA at Brooklyn College and my master's at Yeshiva University School of Social Work. I told you I'm a yeshiva girl. And I started a family. It took another decade and a half until that dream of Aliyah, it's a Hebrew word which means going up. So it has a sense of holiness. Going up, Aliyah, the immigrating to Israel. We moved then to a town called Ashkelon. Now that's been in the papers in the last year because that was the town that's right on the Gaza Strip. And I worked at Barzilai Hospital Mental Health Center, and Barzilai Hospital was also bombed in October during the beginnings of the wonderful thing that's been happening this past 15 months. We all became Israeli citizens under the law of return. This law allows any Jew from anywhere to become a citizen of Israel. Arabs from Gaza were employed at the hospital, mostly in housekeeping. Ashkelon is right on the strip. I don't even know how far it is, but it's a few kilometers north of Gaza. And it's actually was a Philistine city, and you know the story of Samson and Delilah. If you know your Bible, that's where it took place. Well, it's a good story. Anyway, the Arab women were employed in housekeeping, and there were medical residents from Gaza, not in my department, but in other parts of the hospital. As a matter of fact, my father, at one time when he came to visit, had a minor heart attack and was treated by one of the Arab doctors, and he kept saying what a nice Jewish boy he was. Could not accept. I frequently crossed through the military checkpoint, wandered the Gaza market, the souk, because they had great rattan furniture and other wonderful bargains. Everybody likes to go through a good market, a souk. And of course, in the Middle East, you still can bargain, which is like, that's so much fun. Arab workers from Gaza built our home, actually, and our cabinet maker from Gaza built our kitchen cabinets. So we were really feeling part of that. I left Israel in the late 80s, and 2 of my children went back on their own. One daughter remained and graduated from Tel Aviv University and is a CPA, married, has a family, and a very, very successful career as CFO of a pharmaceutical research company. The other returned to the States after serving in the IDF Special Forces. Life frequently comes full circle. My granddaughter, Donna, last year graduated from Bay Barrel College, where I first went, and her sister Adi is now attending Hebrew University School of Social Work, which was my dream. So 2 of my daughters, 4 of my grandchildren served in the IDF. Gratefully, no one saw combat. My other daughters and grandchildren visit Israel frequently, where they spend much time, as I did, and have maintained a deep engagement with this land, their friends, and extended family. They have aunts and uncles and cousins and so forth. It's clear that I shared my love of Israel with my children too. After returning to the States, my marriage ended and I found myself concentrating on my career. I needed to. My work involved moving me around the country, from Bayonne, New Jersey, to St. Petersburg, Florida, Norman, Oklahoma, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Columbus, Ohio, and finally Detroit, Michigan. I've also worked in Snoqualmie, Washington, Waycross, Georgia, Alpena, Michigan, Florence, South Carolina, Rockledge, Florida, Donovan, Missouri, nobody's heard of Donovan, and Mountain Home, Arkansas, and Platteville, Wisconsin. I mention all these places not to point out that I am truly a wandering Jew, but to note that none of these places were hotbeds of Jewish life. I was often out of my comfort zone and gaining some very different perspectives on life. My ability to relocate and adapt to new situations was an important resource for me. I learned to never say, but we always, or to adapt quickly to different work cultures as well as other social mores in each new environment. It was challenging, but I loved it. My life was enriched by the many interesting people I met and with whom I continue to have contact. I continued visiting Israel frequently for the weddings, birth of my grandchildren, bat mitzvahs, and holidays. I began to look at Israeli political behavior with a more critical eye. I realized that I had ignored Israel's behavior toward and the abuse of Arabs, both those living in the state and for certain those in the occupied zones, and especially in the West Bank. I was always aware of the quote-unquote Arab problem, but was really not sensitive to it. The concept of the need for a Jewish homeland was always my priority. I believed that we Jews needed a safe place where we wouldn't be called dirty Jews, discriminated against, murdered, somewhere we could speak our holy language, celebrate our holidays any way we wished. Even though I had heard stories like that of Deir Yassin. Deir Yassin was an Arab village that was decimated by the Israeli forces in the War of Independence, also known as the Nakba, and the residents were all murdered. It is now the home of a psychiatric hospital, Givat Shaul, and as part of my job, I visit that place very, very frequently. I worked in psychiatry, obviously. I witnessed discriminatory behaviors, but I never confronted or confirmed the historical realities of institutional persecution of the state. It was depressing and horrifying. I've also had the wonderful opportunity to travel other parts of the world, and I remembered one experience for me. I was just standing on a wall in Bristol, Ireland, and if anybody's been there, there's this amazing wall. And if you look at one side, it's the wall that separates the Catholic and the Protestant sides. And one side, there's graffiti portraying this person as a hero. And the very same person in the graffiti on the other side is the devil incarnate. Same person. And I wondered, they figured this out, why can't we? Locating in the Metro Detroit area has been a blessing in so many ways. My husband and I love living here, and we're thrilled that life sort of dumped us here, but we don't know how. At first, we were embraced by the Techia community, and we love our congregation and all its members. And later, I was involved with DJJ, Detroit Jews for Justice, where I had an opportunity I think that's where Joel and I met, but I'm not sure. Anyway, which was afforded me an opportunity to be involved in justice work, to explore my personal relationship with racism, white supremacy, and privilege. It was hard to ignore the connection, the similarity with the injustice that was becoming evident in Israel and Palestine. Studying the concept of reparations, I learned an important Talmudic concept. It's called that stolen beams. Briefly and paraphrased, what is your responsibility if you unwittingly bought a house that was constructed of stolen beams? What do you do about it? This concept took me way beyond the issue of reparations. It's a really heavy duty, or our land acknowledgements and all that. We are all living in houses of stolen beams. In the words of Torah, my heart was circumcised. Pharaoh's heart was uncircumcised until the plague struck Egypt. We study Torah every Wednesday mornings at 12 o'clock online. And I love go back to some of the ancient phrases. But to have an uncircumcised heart, a heart that doesn't open up and that doesn't see the truth. COVID presented us with so many scary things and difficult choices, but one of the few blessings of COVID is learning how to use Zoom and staying in touch with community in spite of being isolated. I was so grateful to this group of congregations from the Reconstructionist, it's actually Reconstructing Judaism community, the movement that my congregation belongs to, which took upon themselves to organize in Zoom an in-depth study of the Israel-Palestine question. I had the opportunity to hear from many, many speakers, both Arab, Jews, Israelis, Palestinians, and eventually Professor Joe Benin taught a course called Occupation 101, which included many readings and lots of documentary videos. I now realized that I was lied to, a victim of deliberate and false propaganda. You talk about not teaching history, teaching it and making it up as you go to make it sound good. I found out glaring truths about the deceit practiced upon the public by the leaders we revered and idolized, the myths that were deliberately created, the horrors that were hidden, and the lies that were told to obfuscate behavior that I could never condone. These past years, excuse me, have been the most difficult years. The horrific tragedies of terrorism, murders, kidnapping, rape, and retaliation were beyond imagination. Incompetent, power-hungry, callous, and murderous leadership has prevented the return of the hostages, a ceasefire, and a way forward toward peace. And we know we're just barely getting through this ceasefire and eking out hostage by hostage slowly, and they're looking worse and worse as we go. My amazing and beautiful family in Israel, a leftist, have protested and marched for months against the Netanyahu government, have no use for the behavior of the settlers. Nevertheless, they cannot tolerate any utterance that appears to question or criticize Israel, even though the country has moved so far right, it no longer resembles any semblance of social democracy it purported to establish. Any sharings of my misgivings about Israel's behavior, my empathy for the plight of those forced into refugee status, mistreated by the Israeli government and its military, abused by West Bank settlers, has caused me to become a persona non grata. I originally wrote about this topic when Rabbi Alana Alpert, our rabbi of Congregation Techia, had asked me to deliver the Yom Kippur Kol Nidre Drash, or the sermon on the holiest evening of the year, Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre. That's when the Jews pray for teshuvah, for repentance. Well, teshuvah can be translated in a couple of ways. It could be repentance or returning or answer. I had to ask myself, how do I face this Yom Kippur? Do I feel guilty for behavior I didn't initiate, but I did ignore? How responsible am I? How will I approach teshuvah on Yom Kippur? Am I repenting or returning or looking for answers? I do repent. I didn't want to know. I allowed myself to hide from the truth about what was happening and had been happening for decades to Arabs, both Israeli and Palestinian. And for that blindness, I do repent. I wish I could return to a sense of innocence and a belief that there is a holy land that can be shared in a truly democratic way and that peace will reign and that all will be well. However, what I really want is an answer, a teshuvah. Actually, teshuvot, the plural, answers, many answers. Why do people think that continually murdering each other will bring about any sort of resolution? Do I feel guilty for behavior I didn't initiate but did ignore? How responsible am I? I do repent. I didn't want to know. I think I repeated myself. Thank you. War might stop for a while, but the rage will ferment and rise again. You can't bomb away a concept. The right to a homeland, the right to live in peace, and the right of the Palestinians to their homeland. Why do folks think that love is finite? Can I love my people, Israel, and also love other people who are created in the image of God, and our belief it's B'Tselem Elohim, in the image, like Palestinians and Arabs? Today, I invite all of us to engage with me in the pursuit of teshuvot, answers, because I believe it's the only way we can have a future for all of us, for every person in the Middle East and for the rest of our country. It is the only way we can as a people of conscience. In a conversation with a younger person the other day, she asked what I thought contributed most to my changing of positions at this stage of life. And I thought long and finally responded, I think it's to being a lifelong learner. Keep your mind open to new information and ready for that information to alter all your previous beliefs. I'd like to leave you with the words of a wonderful Israeli poet named Yehuda Amichai. It was translation by Stephen Mitchell, and it's called The Place Where We Are Right. From the place where we are right, flowers will never grow. In the spring, the place where we are right is hard and trampled like a yard, but doubts and loves dig up the world like a mole, a plow, and a whisper will be heard in the place where the ruined house once stood. Thank you for your attention.
Nothing to answer that but singing. Would you all rise in body and or spirit and join me in singing our final hymn, Gonna Lay Down My Sword and Shield.
162.
162.
62. Yes. Gonna lay down my sword and shield down by the riverside. shake hands all around the world. Everywhere I roam, gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. I ain't gonna study war no more. Study war no
Folks, every story that we are told has nuance to it. There are rarely ever 100% clear moral characteristics to anything. If you want to say that there was a horrible terrorist act that happened on October 7th, I agree with you. And there was nuance to that. If you want to say that the land of Israel is perpetrating horrible attacks on Palestine because they themselves were subjected to horrific things, then I also ask us to think about the fact that those Palestinian people that did that terrorist act on October 7th were also subjected to horrible things before that. There is no one completely innocent party in war. So let's learn, let's nuance, let's think, let's open our minds. If Syma can do it at 80 years old, 82, she reminds us, 82. She fought for those 2 extra years. Then we can learn ourselves, because we're never going to be able to change anything if we can't get to the root cause of it. There's a reason that we are mostly white folks sitting in UU congregations, but until we tell a nuanced story and get to the root cause, we're not going to be able to change it. There's a reason Trump got elected. But until we can tell a nuanced story and get to the root cause, we're not going to change it. There's a reason that we tell our national story war by war. But until we tell a nuanced story and get to the root cause, we're not going to be able to change it. Let's get curious and let's learn some stuff. And let's do it together. Go in peace, return in love. Come back for program council. Push the chalice. You guys should fire me as worship leader, I swear to God. Please repeat after me. We extinguish this flame.
We extinguish this flame,
but not the light of hope.
but not the light of hope.
The warmth of community.
The warmth of community,
Nor the energy of action.
nor the energy of action.
These we carry with us until we are together again.
These we carry with us until we are together again. All right, pray for me, y'all.